My name is Jeremy Wade. I'm an explorer, a biologist, and a fisherman. I've spent my life trekking to remote parts of the world, searching for giant freshwater fish, the unusual and the bizarre, following leads and chasing tails. And then I heard this story. People are disappearing in North India, swallowed by some sort of horrific river monster, a freshwater abomination. I'm going out there to investigate, to uncover the truth behind these horrifying stories. I'm going to hunt down the monster of the Kali River, to find out if it really exists. They do exist. I first heard these reports of people disappearing a couple of years ago. If they're true, this really is the stuff of nightmares. The first victim was a young Nepali boy. Just 17 years old, Dil Bahadur is swimming while he and his girlfriend wait for the ferry. They are planning to cross into India, to start a new life together. But their dream will never be fulfilled. Suddenly, and without warning, Dil disappears beneath the water, as if he is being pulled down by something below.
It all happened in a flash.
He never surfaces. And after days of searching, no remains of the young man are ever found. It's as if he never existed.
We found no body, no creature, nothing. For at least 5 kilometers. Nothing was found.
Within a few months, the monster struck again. This time, it is a young boy washing in the river. He is standing in shallow water, no deeper than his knees. Suddenly he screams, "Something's grabbed me," before being dragged underwater. His father is only a few feet away. By the time he has come to his son's aid, the boy has completely vanished. Again, people search the water, hoping to find some trace, some clue as to how this tragedy occurred. Nothing is ever found. Both attacks happened on a short stretch of a remote river called the Kali, where this river forms the border between Nepal and India. The river flows down from the sacred Himalayas, and it is named after Kali the Destroyer, the Hindu goddess of death. This region has a long history of man-eaters and spirits, of demons and gods. This is where heaven meets earth. This is the top of the world, a place where reality and fantasy are almost one and the same thing. This is the perfect place for a monster, maybe just too perfect. This mystery can only be solved by logic and analysis. I cannot let my imagination get the better of me. I must keep an open mind, and the only way I can do that is to get to ground zero. My quest has begun. I fly into Delhi, India's capital. Then an overnight train takes me to the northern frontier of the country. As a biologist, it's in my nature to be skeptical, but as a travelling fisherman, I've actually seen enough to realise that not all fishermen's tales are pure imagination. The latest news is that people are still disappearing. The creature is still out there. And from the last railhead, it's a 20-hour, bone-jarring journey higher into the Himalayas. I've now been travelling for over 2 days. The modern world might as well be 1,000,000 miles away. This road just gets washed away every year in the monsoons. I mean, you can't reach the area at all for sort of weeks on end very often. According to my map here, in fact, the road, doesn't even go to where I'm getting to. But just trust that we're going to get there. If anything goes wrong, I'm a long way from help, but it's getting too late to turn back now. What I've got to do is gather as much local intelligence as I can along the way. Now, the thing is, this area is a virtual information black hole. Very little goes in and even less comes out. This place is not disappointing. Even from up here, you can just see the power of that water. It's not flat and calm. It's deep and dark and turbulent. And to be honest, the thought, now that I'm here, of actually confronting that water and this monster that is supposed to live down there, I mean, it really, really is daunting. Water hides so much. That is what makes this mystery so tantalizing. Just what is going on beneath the surface. I've made contact with an old friend, Vinny Badola. I've been on fishing trips with Vinny in the past, and I'm relying on him to help me speak with the local people. He's set up an expedition that will take me right over the monster's lair. What I've got to do is have a really good look at the water where the monster is said to live and gather as much local intelligence as I can along the way. Now, the thing is, from the stories I've heard, it's supposed to operate in a length of river that's possibly 15 or 20 miles long. So we're starting our expedition high up the valley at an altitude of some 2,000 feet. The riverbank is just mountainside. There's just no way I can do that on foot. Okay, we're going. From here, there's no going back. The local name for the area I'm about to enter is the Gundesh. It means the lost country, and it is the perfect hideout for a monster. People have disappeared, swallowed by an underwater monster in the Kali River in North India. I'm going to find out exactly what is going on. I have entered the Gundesh, the lost country, the heart of the monster's lair. My mission is to travel downriver, collecting all the information I can and sift fact from fiction. Every evening we'll have to set up a new camp, as this river is too dangerous to navigate at night. It's very sparsely populated here. You occasionally see people walking along the tops of mountains, and so even halfway up some sort of sheer mountainsides collecting fodder for goats and things like that. But word travels very quickly, and we've already got quite a little crowd gathering around the campsite. We've reached the location of the first attack, the disappearance of Dil Bahadur. Tomorrow, I'm hoping to find out more. Vinny's organised a meeting with a man who was there at the time. His name is Bhuvan Punetha. And is this the place where the story features? Mr. Punetha was waiting for the ferry to come across the river. There were 3 other people, his friend and this young Nepali couple. And he said the boy in shallow water, knee-deep water, he just disappeared too quickly even to scream, to shout. I mean, what alerted them was the fact that the girl screamed. They just disappeared under the water, and it's calm water. It's not the fast bit of the pool, and he didn't see a fish or anything at all. There was just a disturbance, and the boy went, and it happened right here where I'm looking now. I mean, it's very hard to believe, but he saw it with his own eyes. Perhaps what Mr. Punetha saw has a less mysterious cause. My first suspect is the river itself. Maybe Dil died as a result of being sucked down by the huge forces generated by whirlpools. New fishing rod? To find out, I use a depth sounder to determine the topography of the river and the pools. I'm looking for sudden deep holes, evidence of whirlpool activity, a place where undercurrents might drag a swimmer underwater. By 20 feet, look, I'm touching the rock. 20 foot, right there. There is deep water close to the bank. Look at that crack there. Do you know what I can do? I can shove this pole in that crack. So literally I'll just move it 6 inches sideways and we got 23 foot. In fact, near the rocky outcrop, the water is as deep as 28 feet. These areas of deep water are created as the water is forced around a bend. The same force creates a series of shifting whirlpools. It is a very powerful river, and there are places literally where, yes, you can be in knee-deep water, you take one step and you're in 30 foot or whatever, and I think, you take a mouthful of water, you go under, that's it, you don't come up. Yet these places are away from the area where Dil Bahadur disappeared. What's interesting, though, is that a lot of these stories are not from the rougher bits of the river, they are from the quiet places, normally in the pools where there's a ferry and you've just got gently shelving water and they disappear. Now that doesn't quite fit with the idea of it's always the water. Bahadur's disappearance happened in shallow water, away from areas of turbulence. There were other people in the water as well, so if it was a sudden surge, why didn't it affect them? I am very doubtful that this was a straightforward case of drowning. The next case certainly wasn't. It's only a mile or so downstream where the next case occurred. Dharmagat is another ferry crossing point. The 10-year-old boy was definitely grabbed by something. Those were his final words, heard by people on the riverbank. But by the time anyone had come to help, he'd vanished. No one saw a thing. What an unimaginable tragedy. Whatever grabbed him must have been extremely powerful to have dragged the boy underwater so quickly. The next case is even scarier. This time the victim was not a small defenseless boy, but an adult buffalo. A couple of years ago, a man who lived in this village here called Mansingh, who has since died, told me about the time he saw his fully grown buffalo dragged into the water just here. But he's actually managed to find his son, and we're going to just see if I can find out anything more about that incident.
ऊपर पानी था, यहाँ से दिख रहा था, साफ नजर आ रहा था। अच्छा, यहाँ से फिर गहरा शुरू था। ठीक। फिर जब गहराई में गया तो फिर नजर नहीं आया।
It was shallow water out here with a few rocks sticking out, and as the first buffalo was drinking water, something grabbed it. And these people saw it sort of struggling with its head and neck, and then suddenly it toppled over into the water. He and his father, they saw the buffalo struggling, or something struggling with the buffalo all along this bend in the pool. And from where the deep water starts, the buffalo disappeared completely. It didn't come up. There was also a lot of blood involved.
So it sounds like something actually grabbed it by the snout almost and sort of pulled it in by the snout.
जाते ही पानी पीने लगी, इतनी पानी में गई थी।
You said that there was something thrashing around that wasn't buffalo. I mean, did anybody get a clear view or any kind of view of what else was in there thrashing in the water?
पानी में ऐसे करते अंदाज तो नहीं आया, लेकिन था वो
कैसा रंग था वो पानी का?
काला काला ही।
He says it was a creature. It was black in color, and it was larger than the buffalo. That's what people noticed about it.
So I mean, in 30 foot of water or whatever we've got, there's just no way you're going to see it. The answer is down there somewhere. But what sort of animal can drag an 800-pound buffalo to a watery death? Here in India, there's an obvious suspect.
Some people say it's a crocodile, but no one knows for sure because no one's had a very clear look at it.
Is this the monster I'm looking for? A giant crocodile? My name is Jeremy Wade, explorer and biologist. I'm tracking a man-eating freshwater monster in the foothills of the Himalayas. My first real suspect is a giant crocodile. Crocodiles are often seen in and around the rivers of northern India. India's leading expert on these apex predators is Rom Whitaker, an American expatriate. Crocodiles are well-known man-eaters, with jaws capable of exerting a force of half a ton to crush the skullbone of victims. Rom has studied crocodiles all around the world and has got up close and personal with all three species that inhabit India and Nepal. The mugger, the gharial, and the salty.
They grow to a huge size, over 20 feet, and as far as salties are concerned, human beings are just part of their menu.
But their range of habitat is limited. Although they can live in fresh water, no salty has ever been recorded as far inland as the Kali River, and certainly not anywhere near the sites of the three disappearances. The gharial crocodile, however, lives exclusively in rivers, and its range once extended to include the Kali River. But although they're equipped with over 100 interlocking razor-sharp teeth, they have narrow jaws, ill-suited to attacking either buffalo or humans. Their diet consists almost exclusively of fish.
Gharial are extremely slender-snouted crocodilians. In fact, they have the thinnest snout of any crocodile in the world. And the only time we've ever heard of a gharial biting a human being was when a female gharial was defending her nest and someone came too close to it.
So the only possible culprit is the mugger. Reaching lengths of 18 feet, they are serious predators and have even been observed feeding on tiger. They can easily make short work of any mammal, even one the size of a buffalo. But are there any mugger crocodiles around here?
Mugger crocodiles are not typically known as man-eaters, but there's no reason why they shouldn't attack humans, and it does happen sometimes.
The colour of the mugger is a close match to the eyewitness report given by Kesar Singh when his buffalo was pulled underwater. He even suggested it was a mugger, but it was just a guess. Normally, muggers are olive green in colour, but they do have some black markings on their back. Partially obscured by water and only visible for an instant, it is credible that Singh saw the creature as black. Could it be that this creature, living up to its name, has hauled a buffalo to its death and also attacked and killed at least 3 people in this cold mountain river, the Kali?
In the lower part of the Kali River, before it enters the Ganges, where it spreads out and where it's flowing slowly, the water is warm and sustains mugger crocodiles.
Roll Gut, where Dil Bahadur disappeared, is 2,000 feet above sea level. And here, the water is both faster and colder.
Mugger crocodiles typically prefer deep pools and slower flowing rivers and nice embankments to haul out on and bask.
No one has seen any sign of a mugger in the area of the disappearances, but I still keep my eyes peeled. Muggers are less agile out of water and are easily visible on land. They'll remain out of the water for up to 12 hours each day. By now, I would have expected to see some evidence of crocs, but still nothing. As we travel further downriver, the rapids seem to be coming at us more frequently. We've come to a set of rapids, and we scouted it out, and there's actually not enough water to go down here. Certainly not with the raft loaded up. It's just going to catch on all these rocks. The bags have been unloaded, and everything's going on some mules. And what we're doing is we're just floating the empty raft down the rapids, and we'll get in the other side. We have it on good authority that crocodiles aren't around here. In fact, the people don't see them. You'd see them out of the water if they were here, but it's just the terrain is wrong, the altitude is, it's too high, the water's too cold, there aren't crocs. I can cross crocodiles off my list. I am now looking for something else entirely. I am sure that some creature is responsible for these deaths, but if it's not a crocodile and it's not whirlpools or currents, what sort of creature is it? We camp at the location of another attack, Nagru Ghat. There is a similarity in all the attack sites. Fast streams feeding deep pools, natural places for ferry crossings. And for those who don't know these stories, perfect swimming pools. He is 18 years old, Atul Kumar, and he is swimming with a friend. They decide to swim to the other side, a distance of some 70 yards. His friend reaches the safety of the far bank. But without warning, without a sound, Kumar disappears. His distraught family launches a search for him. But just like the other cases, nothing is found. But this time, the monster slipped up. This time, a local man, saw the monster in the act. He draws the head of the beast in the sand.
He
says looks like an elongated pig.
Borgi actually saw this.
Yes, he's actually seen it.
The monster took the boy out there in the middle of the river, and Mr. Bora believes it was a monster called the Seuss.
Or going to water where it is known that Seuss lives, it will definitely take you.
There's a sort of a mass of evidence, sort of building up, isn't there? This Seuss takes my whole investigation in an unexpected direction. On my travels in India, I've heard this word before, but it has always been used to describe a river dolphin. Is it really possible that the Kali killer is a river dolphin? So, how many species of river dolphin are there worldwide? Is it 12, 8, or 4? Before the break, I asked you how many species of river dolphin there are worldwide. The answer is 4. I'm an explorer and fisherman. I'm in northern India on the trail of a freshwater monster, a man-eater. I've been told it is a Seuss, a creature that looks like an elongated pig. I've come across this word before, but it has always been used to describe a river dolphin. There are just 4 species of river dolphin, and one of them lives in the Ganges. I've been around river dolphins before, and I know that they're not the benign creatures that a lot of people imagine. They are toothy, they are supreme predators, and they can grow very big. They're almost blind and about as big as a man. The river dolphin's distribution has never historically ever included the Kali River. But more conclusively, these air-breathing mammals have to break surface at least every 2 minutes. Of all the witnesses, no one has ever mentioned seeing anything prior to or after the attack. With a dolphin, I'm convinced they would have. So I've eliminated drowning, crocodiles, and river dolphins. Maybe the Seuss is just some kind of giant fish. Maybe all I need to do to solve this mystery is do what I do best, go fishing. But just as I'm starting to get comfortable with what I'm looking for, I get thrown a wild card. Something is investigating the bait, and there's part of me looking at that water that is saying, I hope it's only a small one. But actually what I really want is a big one. That is direct to a fish. It feels like the bottom, but it's actually a fish. I'm just gonna... It hasn't woken up, it doesn't know it's hooked yet. Look at that rod, but it still doesn't actually know it's hooked. Take this easy. Be ready for it to run, though. It might well run. It's actually in very close. There's the trace. The fish is going to be visible very soon. Ah, see the bubbles? Oh!
Black in color.
Turtle, turtle, turtle. I've just got the mother of all turtles. The mother of all turtles. Although they're hardly ever seen, these waters are home to the biggest freshwater turtles in the world. This one would weigh in at about 200 pounds. That's heavier than I am. Could the Seuss be a turtle? Big stone here, big stone! Big stone here! They sure have the attitude. That neck is nearly half its body length. We need to cut the line. Blimey, O'Reilly. The reason these creatures are so rare is they're a favourite food. Turtles here are eaten. If the Seuss was a turtle, the people would have just told me. But could it be the killer? Soft-shell turtle. Very vicious jaws this end, but not quite what I was after. Turtles are not active predators. They're scavengers. They just sit and wait, fattening themselves up. And the chances of a turtle grabbing a swimmer, it doesn't really add up. Let alone snatch a fully grown buffalo. At least this one gets to fight another day. Bye-bye, and don't come back. My mission is to find the identity of the Kali killer. I'm working through the possible suspects, but I'm not getting many leads. Despite being such a sparsely populated area, people have turned up after we've stopped and made camp.
The river had risen and it was making a largish pool down there.
It's interesting, there's a curiosity about what I'm doing here, but also there's a certain amount of suspicion as well. And some of the people who were going to come and talk to me have actually not turned up. And I can sort of see things from their point of view. The whole thing about coming all this way, you know, it is a bit unlikely, really. Surely I must have other motives, you know, whatever they are, but whatever they are, they can't be good. So, you know, a few people have actually decided to stay away.
The
only thing they found was a slipper and her scarf.
When I first came here, I thought the people would be clamouring for me to help them rid the place of this man-eater, and that they might help me track it down. This region is a very mystical place, a very spiritual place, and Kali plays an important role here. Not just the river, but the goddess. Hindus believe that as the body is recycled, so is the spirit. So every end is also a beginning. And it's interesting then that despite her role as the destroyer, the devotees of Kali also see her as the mother of the universe. It's not the kind of life where you can just sit around at home. You've actually got to get out and herd your animals and chop fodder. So, avoidance isn't really an option. You've just got to get out there. And now there is this thing of a man-eater in the water too. What's interesting though is that the attitude is very much, what will be, will be. You haven't got a choice, have you? Just get on with life and accept whatever happens. I still want to find out what's going on, just for the people who live here. But this quest is fast becoming a personal obsession. I'm confident that these disappearances were not drownings, nor attacks by crocodiles, dolphins, or turtles. And there are witnesses. Too many witnesses for these to be just stories. I've got no doubt that the Seuss exists, and the only thing I haven't crossed off my list is a fish. But a man-eating fish in fresh water. It's got to be something of extreme and abnormal proportions. A real monster. My head is getting pretty full. This mystery is more tangled than I ever expected. In times of confusion, to think things through, I fish.
Right, I've just had a screaming take on a deadbait, and it was a marcia.
The golden Himalayan marcia is what these rivers are famous for.
But not what I was after. Normally I'd be so happy to get a fish like this. Green bag, please. Green bag.
Green bag?
Yes. Okay. Let it tire itself right out. Okay.
Marcia can grow huge, the size of a man and bigger. But they're just really a scaled-up carp. They're not capable of being a man-eater.
Almost as tired as the fish, I think.
With a big fish, it's not just a case of pulling it in. You have to gradually tire it out.
Well out of the way of the other line.
What this marcia proves is that there's plenty to eat in these rivers, plenty of food for a monster.
That is a lovely, lovely mastiff. Absolutely fantastic. Look at that for a fish. That's fantastic. 20 and a half according to this. Yeah.
At just over 20 pounds, this golden Himalayan marcia is the fish of dreams. Clearly, my luck is changing. Every detective needs a breakthrough, usually a witness, someone who can pull all the conflicting pieces together. And I might have just found mine.
अच्छा यदि अगर बॉडी नहीं मिली
बोलना मतलब थोड़ा टेंशन.
Vinay's just introduced me to Jogger Singh, who's in his 70s now. He's lived on the river a long time. He's actually worked on the river. He's floated on log rafts down here and has probably seen and heard more than anybody else in these parts. So just going to sort of quiz him a little bit on, you know, the detail of some of those stories. Mr. Singh immediately starts talking about the soos, and I can feel my investigation closing in.
He says a soos is a creature which, if it sucks, it can suck you in from a distance.
Things that have been lurking in the corners of my mind come lurching forward. When a fish does get big, when it opens its mouth, it does create this kind of vacuum, and people don't tend to understand. They think that a fish actually just bites something, but actually a big fish, when it opens its mouth, it creates this vacuum, and the bigger the fish, the longer the distance that it can suck over. So you wouldn't actually, you know, you wouldn't necessarily see anything.
It wouldn't be too far from the truth to say it's actually sucking it in. He says it's huge. It's bigger than that. It's longer than this distance. It is about,
what, 9 or 10 foot, something like that?
thereabouts. It's bigger than that.
Even his seemingly wild claims about the size are suddenly making sense.
Color kya hua uska?
Then a single word crashes through, a name.
He says it looks like a goonch, but it's vast and it's black.
Goonch. I know that name. A rarely seen species of predatory catfish that lives in these waters. Goonch.
So he says that anytime a body goes completely missing in water, it is usually attributed to the goonch, and people stop looking for the bodies.
So from that, it actually sounds as if the goonch and the soos they're actually the same thing. And actually, Vinay, that's really interesting. I think that does actually start to clarify things. You know, pull all these odd, weird strands together. I think I have my culprit. Are all these killings the work of a giant, rarely seen predatory catfish, the goonch? Now I know its identity, it still sounds incredible. All I've got to do is prove it. I have to catch a goonch big enough to be a man-eater. My name is Jeremy Wade. I'm on the trail of a freshwater monster, a man-eater. Now I'm convinced it's a giant fish, and at least with fish I'm on fairly familiar territory, although the size of the animal we're talking about here does sound to be rather unbelievable. But as all detectives know, sometimes when you've eliminated all the other possibilities, the impossible becomes plausible. So now I just have to catch a catfish. But a goonch so large, so outsized, that it is capable of catching and killing a man. Only then can I prove the identity of the Kali killer. I'm right here in the heart of the monster's territory, and we're camping next to a pool which has all the hallmarks of an attack site. This place is starting to cast a spell.
It's another pretty cold, chilly day out there again, and I can't even see the river. Just had another rather fitful night, interrupted by visions of dark, turning water and underwater caverns and something that is capable of dragging in people and animals.
I'm taking every opportunity to fish, to see if I can stir up this monster, to get face to face with a goonch. I'm convinced now that it is a fish, but no ordinary fish, something extraordinary. Every waking moment is spent fishing, but I keep coming up blank. Nothing moves. I'm starting to doubt myself. Am I doing something wrong? It's been several weeks, and this expedition has been tough.
Such a good idea to leave my things out to dry during the night. I mean, look at this mist. Everything's not going to be too comfortable to wear.
As much as I like rivers, I'd rather appreciate this one. I think from my armchair, the cold is starting to get into my bones, and you know, it's hard going. The people here are telling me that this thing is actually so big, so monstrous, that it is actually impossible to get it out. It would be impossible. You know, the question of whether they want it removed from the river or don't want it removed from the river is actually academic. I mean, it is impossible. Why bother? So, you know, to even think about it, you know, am I being sort of foolish or arrogant, or, you know, should I really just find something else to do? I don't know. But one thing's clear, I mean, the stuff I've got with me at the moment, although, you know, that is very, very heavy equipment by any normal freshwater standards. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. You know, is just not up to the task. I now believe I have the identity of the Kali killer. It's an outsized goonch catfish. But I don't have heavy enough gear with me to have any chance at all of landing it. But I do in my shed back home in the UK. I'm going to need my monster tackle. The only thing that's certain is I'm going to have to use some kind of a line. I can't afford to give this beast any kind of chance. You know, there's already too much operating in its favour. So any concept of sport has to go right out of the window. I'm going to need some seriously heavy gear. This is what I normally use to extract large fish from snaggy lakes and rivers. In this case, I don't think it's going to be up to the job. This line has a breaking strain of 90 pounds, which is actually totally ridiculous by any normal freshwater standards. But for something that may be 3 or 4 or 5 times the size of that, you know, this just ain't going to shift it. I reckon I'm going to need the kind of gear you'd normally use for big game sea fishing, for 1,000-pound marlin or bluefin tuna. These are my normal heavy hooks. I'm going to have to beef these up as well. And as for rods, again, we're talking something you'd normally use out in the open ocean. I'm fairly confident that this gear will be up to the job, but I'm not totally sure that I'm going to be. I also need to find out more about what I'm up against. If you type goonch into an internet search, you get nothing. No natural history, nothing. It's a species of catfish, and that's about all that anybody knows. But there are a few thousand species of catfish, all unique in their own particular way. The scientific information about this particular species, how long they live, their feeding habits, how big they grow, is virtually non-existent. There's only one place that can help, the Natural History Museum in London. It's a place with an impressive collection of monsters. But this is no tourist visit. I'm going behind the scenes. I've arranged a meeting with curator Oliver Crimmen, a world authority on freshwater fish, and the man who holds the key to the monster locker.
Arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. They've been reported up to 13 feet.
The only native habitat for Arapaima is, however, South America.
Also, we've got a sturgeon head in here. They grow to 16 feet, of course, a real giant, and are found in fresh water, but not solely. They're one of those migratory species.
In rivers, the largest sturgeon species are found in Europe and Canada.
And this species, the wels, has been widely spread around the world, largely as an angling quarry, and including Britain.
Yeah.
And they can grow to 10 feet.
Yet the Wels catfish is essentially a European species, and I'm pretty certain there have been no attempts to introduce them into India. But none of these monsters is what I'm after. None of them are found in the Kali. What I'm looking for is a goonch catfish, and we find one in a back room.
Here we go, goonch catfish.
This is my prime suspect.
Yeah, to my mind, this does tick all the right boxes.
Yeah, so these are the teeth of a predator. Fangs, backward facing, to prevent prey escaping. This is just a small one, of course. We don't know how big they can grow. Depends on the conditions, I suppose.
I'd imagine you wouldn't have to scale this up too much. I mean, by a factor of 2 or 3, and it would start to be a serious threat to a human being.
And straight away, there's something different about this cat. Goonch have teeth, and they look like the teeth on a shark. I've got an idea. I've been given a tip that there is someone in town who might help me out. Californian Rick Rosenthal has filmed the largest and most dangerous oceanic predators, confirmed man-eaters. If I can get him to join me on my next expedition, I think it will give me a real advantage. That could do you some serious damage.
Oh,
couldn't it, if you got
absolutely.
away
Like
from
here,
it?
these animals are traveling at breakneck speeds. You know, they can get up to 50, 60 miles an hour. And if you're on the end of the bait ball, the other side, and they're coming through, look out.
That would go through your suit, wouldn't it? I'll go through both. But for Rick, this is not going to be what he's used to. It will be the first authenticated. This is no deep blue ocean. This is a murky, moving river, up close and personal. And Rick does not disappoint me. He wants in, and he has some exciting suggestions.
You know, I'd like multiple cameras if we can, smaller cameras that we can sit on the bank of the river and watch this unfold before our eyes.
So first we have to check that everything is workable, watertight, and ready for India.
Jeremy, we're getting an image?
Yeah, I'm getting an image. A pole cam to recce and survey pools.
Tell you what, the detail is really good.
A mini submarine to do deeper surveys. And of course, his handheld camera. I'm thinking, if I can't catch this fish with my rod, then maybe we can catch one on film. There's so little known about goonch, no one has ever filmed them in their natural habitat. But I doubt that any goonch has ever been confronted by the full technological might of the 21st century. 48 hours later, we're in India and back on the trail of the monster. I'm going back now, prepared and ready to tackle the man-eater of the Kali. I'm returning to one of the remotest rivers in India to hunt for the man-eating monster that lurks beneath its surface. It's a monster that I'm convinced is a giant fish, and I've enlisted some help. I know of a special place where Rick and I can prepare ourselves before heading into the monster's lair. It's a place where there is no fishing, so you can sometimes see goonch quite clearly. It's Corbett National Park. It's a place I always wanted to visit, as Jim Corbett, to whose memory the park is dedicated, was a childhood hero of mine. Corbett lived in this area and hunted down the man-eaters that terrorised these hills towards the end of Britain's colonial rule of India. Some of these cats had taken a huge number of victims, into the hundreds. It's uncanny. I'm here for the same reason. But whereas Corbett's man-eating cats were tigers and leopards, mine is a giant catfish.
The reason we're on elephants is we've got tiger here, and there have been man-eaters here, so we don't want to be getting off the elephant, and that's why we've got the armed guard as well. Down by that cliff there, there's a deep old pool, and if we go down there, we might see some of our catfish friends.
But before we face the Kali killer, Rick and I will attempt to warm up on some smaller goonch to find out just what we could be up against.
Stop here. Okay, stop. There's a black... wait a minute. Rick, you see these black shadows? Sure. That's them. Those are goonch. They can just cope with this fast water. They're very streamlined. They've got this big flat head, and they just lie there and they just spread those pectoral fins, and they're just glued to the bottom, and the current just washes over the top of them. And the current is like a conveyor belt. It'll just bring them food, and if anything comes down on the current, they just open their mouth and in it goes. These fish, they're about, 5 foot long or something like that. They're probably twice the size of that in the deeper water. But that's a hefty old fish. There's a big one there. Look at that. There's a good size.
Yeah, I can see the pectoral fins. That looks like a shark. Looks like a nurse shark.
That one's 6 foot or so, isn't it? That's the biggest one.
This is very rare. I mean, the fish is not that common these days, and it's only because they're protected that they're in here and that we're able to see them. We go any other river and they're much more wary. They're really, if they're there at all, they're going to be in the deep pools. But I mean, here we are in the shallows.
Now it's time to get a fish's eye view. Can we actually be the first people to film a goonch in its natural habitat? This pool just outside the park is too deep to use the pole can, so we are going straight in with the submarine.
All right, Jeremy, let's launch this, huh? Got an image yet?
Got an image, I'm just under the surface.
Lights on? Take it down about right there.
And straight away, we're seeing fish. Lots of fish. It seems there's a good food supply for a hungry goonch. I'm surprised by how many fish we're seeing. From the surface, the whole pool looks really empty.
Ooh, there's a little gully like.
What's happening now? What's happening now? What's happening? What's happening?
I think we have a catfish tucked into an underwater crevice.
There he is, there he is, there he is.
It's a goonch.
It's quite spooky because there's this tail poking out and the body just disappears into the dark and you can't see how long the body goes on for. So, now, can you see? There's the tail, there's the tail.
Catfish tend not to be very visible. They're notorious for living in cloudy water full of sediment, and they've developed super senses which counteract the poor visibility. They don't have to see, they can feel and taste their way in the dark. So it's amazing seeing one of these fish so clearly. But could one of these really be a man-eater?
It does sound far-fetched, but given the right circumstances, there is absolutely nothing to prevent a freshwater fish becoming a man-eater.
With such an opportunity, I'm going to see if I can get close enough to examine it.
I had him! It was that close to the surface. I wasn't gripping quite hard enough.
My first encounter with a goonch, and I lost. But it's a start. However, with the limited range of the submarine, it means that if we're to get the footage we want, we're going to have to both get in, with the proper camera.
We've got good diving conditions now. Diving critical.
Are you ready?
The poor visibility makes this experience really eerie. You keep expecting a monster to slip silently out of the gloom. And then one does, and it's not alone.
many do you see?
I think I saw 3.
There's more than that.
Yeah.
The whole pile of them in here. They're not like you think. I'm not kidding you, there's at least 6 in here. They're all stacked in there like cordwood. There's some powerful animals in there too. I would not want to run onto those 9 feet long. They're just such a horror. Oh. And they're strong. They're really strong. One of them just walked the camera with a tail, and I'll tell you, this is not a fat catfish. This thing is strong. I can see it couldn't pull somebody in.
Yeah.
This is the first time the Goonch catfish has ever been filmed in its natural habitat. And we get not just 1, but 6, all tight against the rock wall.
And I just happened to find it by luck, really. Looked, and there was 1, and there was 2, 3, and there was 3 on the wall. There was 6 of them right in the area about 2 meters. They're kind of spooky fish, and especially in that dark overhangs. Their tails are just sticking out, at least 5 or 6 feet long in there. They bumped the camera a couple times underwater, and I could feel their strength.
They aren't particularly scared of us, and now we have proof there are large goonch in these waters, that they stick together and are found in the deep pools, tight against the rocks. But none of these is the man-eater. And this is the first time goonch have ever been filmed in their natural habitat. With our recce complete and success under our belts, it's now time to head straight into the heart of the monster's lair. To see if we can solve this mystery once and for all. To see if we can find and film a monster goonch. This is the big one, and the pressure is building. Because we need to hurry. The monsoon, the seasonal rains are fast approaching, and this will turn the river into a raging torrent. But before we set off, Vinny has a real surprise for me.
This was a Goonch catfish.
Wow. There's 2 guys there, they can hardly lift the whole thing out. I mean, what's that? That's about 7 foot long or
This
more?
was 7 feet 4.
7 foot 4.
We couldn't lift it, so we couldn't weigh it at all.
Yeah, yeah.
But it must have been in the vicinity of around 100-120 kilos or so.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of getting an accurate idea of its size, one of its fins is sticking out of the water here, and that's about the size of somebody's forearm. So its mouth is going to be something like that.
But the head was actually about this broad or so.
Yeah.
And when you open it up, it'll open into the size of a 60-liter drum.
So you could actually probably disappear head and shoulders inside it.
Quite easily.
So it wouldn't need to be, that much bigger than that to be, seriously dangerous. This monster was found dead in a different river, so it couldn't have been the Kali killer. But what it does show is that the goonch that we saw were just small fry, even though some of them were 4 and 5 feet long.
Teeth were like that big, this broad, and both the edges are sharp.
If it did get hold of you in its mouth, actually there's not an easy way to get away from that, is it?
No.
So this picture is a really strong piece of evidence that suggests that goonch could have the potential to reach man-eating size. And now, all I have to do is show that an even bigger fish exists here in the Kali. My name is Jeremy Wade. I'm hunting for a man-eating river monster, a giant catfish called a goonch. But the question is, in these cold, nutrient-poor waters, How could a goonch grow big enough to become a man-eater? It turns out there's a grisly answer. Human corpses. It is the Hindu custom to burn the dead on the banks of the river before consigning their remains to the waters. Pandit Kamlesh Vyas is a leading Hindu cleric and has personal experience of this practice.
They'll burn the funeral pyre, and when the body is even half burned, they'll just push it away or just slide it into the river. Once the soul is gone, that means your body is just a thing, actually. So water creatures, they can use the body as their food.
Is this fish getting fat on human remains? The theory that this monster has grown extra large on a diet of partially cremated corpses is something that the local people actually said to me. Sounds pretty gruesome, but of course it's just perfectly natural behaviour for a scavenger. The thing about these stories, though, is that this monster appears to have made this sinister quantum leap to feeding on living animals, including people. But just how big could one of these fish get? That's the ultimate question. Creatures that live in the water can just keep on growing if they've got enough food. And there will be a few freak individuals which have grown bigger than the other ones there, and if you put in lots of artificial food, those creatures will grow even bigger. But then, any shortage in its regular food supply could drive such a freak individual to hunt for alternatives, dead or alive. We set up camp at the place where the buffalo disappeared, but conditions have already changed. What are your first impressions of the water, Rick?
Murky. Really murky. Be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so brown. Yeah, we're a little late, aren't we? You know, the runoff has begun, and it's going to be difficult to see anything in that water. No, it's going to be too tough. And I can't make miracles in there with that kind of brown tea water. We'll never see the animal, and if it is aggressive, it would not be a good situation. You know, it would just be, gobbled up.
I've brought this guy here halfway around the world from California to a river that just looks like soup, and what he must be thinking, I just don't know. I knew that the visibility here, is not good at the best of times, but it is really murky now, and it's just so disappointing to hear him say there is absolutely no way he's going to get in the water. There's just no point. You can see about this far in front of your face. Rain and snowmelt have coloured the water. The monsoons are starting sooner than we thought.
You earned it.
We hang on for a few days to see if the conditions will change, to see if the water will run clearer. Getting into cloudy water with a predator is far too dangerous. After a couple of days, the water has still not cleared. And after another day of hanging on, it becomes obvious that there's no point Rick being here any longer.
Okay, Jeremy. Well, good luck.
Have a good journey. So now it's back to the rod again, I guess.
It is.
Yeah. From here on, it's going to be just me and the monster. Being on my own again really makes me feel the remoteness of this place and the sheer enormity of what I've got to do, because Rick and I have just thrown everything at this and we haven't so much as had a glimpse of this killer fish. So in a way I just feel as if I'm back where I started. I've just come full circle. It's back to a line in the water. to know this river. I've heard the horror stories, seen the evidence for myself. I've worked out what the Seuss is, what it looks like, and where it lives. The next step is to try and fish one out. I have at least got a much clearer idea of what I'm dealing with now, and I have got the right kind of gear to deal with it, but it's still a needle in a haystack. And the monsoon is fast approaching. I can feel the air pressure building, and you've got these clouds boiling up, and if the rains come, I could be stranded here, and that really focuses the mind. The brown water that sent Rick home is getting worse, and the water level is beginning to rise. I've just got to get cracking. I've got to get the bait in the water in front of something, and it hasn't happened yet. There is still time, but the pressure is not just the atmospheric pressure, the pressure is building. I'm using dead bait, chunks of fish, to draw them in. But the rising waters have got the goonch biting, and I'm quickly into some fish. That is a goonch. It's not a very big one. Each catch gives me data on these fish, like how big their mouth is in relation to body size. Information that will help me calculate how big a man-eating goonch really needs to be. Look at the length of the tentacles on the tail. Look at that. This has been an awful lot of work to get here. I mean, it has been a huge amount of work, but here we have a goonch out of the water, and it's a proper one. It's not a baby one. It's still not hugely big, but here we are. I'm not seeing it under the water through a couple of yards of murk. The ones I saw when I was with Rick underwater, there was a real sort of hallucinatory quality about those. Are they real? They really just don't look real when you see them under the water. That doesn't really look real now, but that is real. That's great. Can you imagine that scaled up to about 3 times the length and grabbing you by the leg and dragging you under? There we go, it's a goonch. It might not be the Kali monster, but it's a monster. I think time to go back into the depths, out of sight, once again, of human eyes. The fish are getting bigger, but still no monster. And with conditions worsening, I have one last trick up my sleeve. One thing people have said about this creature is that it is actually attracted by commotion on the riverbank, particularly the flames, vibration, smells, everything associated with these riverside funerals. So I'm building a simulated funeral pyre to try and call the creature in. Put a tasty morsel in the water, and I'll sit up with this fire behind me and hope that it lures it in. That night, nothing stirs. But in the morning, it's in the fast water. Something very powerful here. Try and relax and keep a bit calm. Gain a tiny bit of line. Right,
The water is flowing this way now. I've got it into the water that's flowing this way. It's a gunch. It's a gunch. It's gunch, no, it's gunch. There's a lot of line out and some very strong water on the other side of it, so it's very, very touch and go, very touch and go.
Over the years, I've developed an almost sixth sense. When fishing, I know when I'm into a big fish, and this is a big fish. And then it does exactly what I didn't want it to do.
I'm gonna have to go for a swim.
Having spent all my waking hours trying to catch this freshwater monster, this man-eater, finally I am in contact with something huge.
It's a gunch. It's gunch, no, it's gunch. It's in the fast water. There's a lot of line out and some very strong water on the other side of it, so it's...
The big problem is I was never going to be able to pull this fish back up against this current.
This is very, very touch and go, very touch and go.
Now that it's escaped into the fast water below the pool, there's only one thing I can do.
I'm gonna have to go for a swim.
I don't know what I'm thinking, apart from being desperate not to lose this fish, regardless of my own safety.
Wait till it comes up. Wait. Now! That is a serious sized gunch. That is a man-sized animal. That is as big as a person. It is bigger than a lot of people around here. That is a big fish. They do exist. The gunch do exist. 6 foot of muscle behind that mouth, and those teeth are just like shark teeth pointing back. If that got hold of you, there'd be no getting away. When I was diving with Rick, and we were seeing these beasts under the water, and they just look so otherworldly. Is it a hallucination? Do these things really exist? And yes, the goonch does exist. Just the absolute perfect predator. Huge mouth on there. Huge mouth. Great big, broad, heavy head. And, you know, the current, you know, even in this monsoon weather, that heavy water coming down, this fish just sits on the bottom, spreads the fins, the huge pectoral fins, and the water just glues it to the bottom. And tiny little eyes, but it's there, just sensing what's coming down in the water. Tentacles even on the end of its fins. It's just got so many nerve endings on. It's like a swimming tongue. And if anything just comes down within range of that mouth, it's too late. Weight and length were about the same, but in terms of nastiness, this animal beats me hands down. I'm not even a contender. I'm just going to put some water on it. I mean, big as this fish is, the fish that is taking people would be bigger than this. I mean, it wouldn't actually need to be more than a couple of feet longer, but that would really give it a bit more weight. I mean, it would probably weigh twice as much as this. And, you know, just the thought of that is quite terrifying. Okay, is it off the ground?
Now, yes.
Okay, 166. I think it's time he went back in the water. He's starting to recover. Back in the water just to get the last little bit of energy, and then back home, I think. for me and the fish.
Goonch catfish are now very rare. This monster's not the Kali killer. Even at 161 pounds, it's just not big enough. I came to prove that giant catfish exist here, and I've done that. I never set out to persecute these amazing animals, and the people here feel very much the same. With that in mind, I let my monster go. The beautiful irony is that the presence of these giants means the river is healthy and protected. The day the monsters disappear is the day the river dies. I set out to prove that there are giant catfish in these waters, and that is what I have done. My job here is finished, or so I thought. I've been hunting for a man-eating catfish in the Kali River, an abominable river monster. Although I have not caught the culprit, I have caught a fish that leaves me in no doubt that there are real monsters in these waters. The monsoon is closing in, and I'm now in a race against time to get out or be stranded. But as we're packing up, I can't resist one last cast. I have caught a massive goonch, but it's not the Kali killer. This means there's an even bigger fish out there. Having had a big fish on, I know what they feel like, and this guy is massive. James, my cameraman, who's been with me the whole time, understands the danger far better than I do.
Very strong, mate. I'm worried about you. The current's very, very, very strong. I know we want it, but think of your safety, please. No, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry.
This really is a massive fish. It's still out there, a monstrous goonch catfish lurking in the Kali River, preying on living people when the supply of human corpses runs low. I haven't heard of any more victims, but I fear it's only a matter of time. The description given by Surendra Bora of the creature as an elongated pig easily corresponds with the smooth, scaleless back of the goonch. Kesar Singh's statement that he saw a black shape also matches. And the sucking force caused by the opening of a vast mouth that Jogar Singh talks about, that also matches. I think that what the eyewitnesses saw was not an elongated pig, not a mythical creature, the Soos. But this, the giant devil catfish, a monster-sized goonch fattened on human remains. For the mountain people, this animal is an instrument of the gods. The Soos just is. And if it comes for you, it just means it's your time. It's hard for me to understand. I don't live like that. But for them, there is no mystery to solve, and it is my outlook that doesn't make sense. Will I ever go back? I have to, one day. Because now I know beyond any doubt that there is a monster, possibly the most monstrous freshwater fish in the world, still lurking in the Kali River. Want more of the world's wildest, strangest and most terrifying freshwater horrors? Visit our website at animalplanet.com/rivermonsters.